October 19th video, how I converted my worm bin to a flow-through worm bin. I talked about how flow-through worm bins work, why I like them, and I showed how I converted a standard 2-bin setup into a flow-through system. In this video, I'm going to set up another flow-through worm bin, but this one will be made from a single bin and will include harvesting rods, which are designed to make harvesting castings a little bit easier. So let's talk about the modifications that were made to the bin. Like before, this design has 7 PVC pipes that run through the bin from front to back. Unlike before, however, only 3 of the pipes are stationary. The other 4 pipes rotate and function as harvesting rods. The holes for the 3 stationary pipes were drilled with a 13/16" flat bit, which results in a very snug fit. The holes for the 4 harvesting rods were drilled with a 7/8" flat bit. These holes are just large enough to allow the pipes to rotate. The holes were drilled 2 3/4 inches apart on center and 6 inches from the bottom of the bin. I determined the desired length of the PVC pipes by inserting a section of pipe through the bin and marking off a length that would allow the pipes to run through the bin, leaving an extra length of about 3/4 inch on each side. I then went outside and cut the pipes to length with a hacksaw. Then I cut a hole in the bin below the PVC pipes, which will enable me to harvest castings as they fall from above. I made sure to leave enough of a lip on the bottom to hold any liquid and castings that might fall into the bottom of the bin. Next, I began my modifications to the harvesting rods. To keep the harvesting rods in place and to make them easier to turn, I glued a variety of PVC connectors to the pipes using clear PVC cement. In the front, I used PVC connectors that would make it easier to turn the pipes. In the back, I used any connectors I had that would hold the PVC pipes in place. After letting the PVC cement dry, I began the modifications that will allow the harvesting rods to work their magic. I turned each harvesting rod handle to a vertical position and marked off every 2 inches with a marker. I then rotated the handles 180 degrees and marked off every 2 inches again, but add a 1-inch offset from the series of marks on the opposite side. Then, using a drill bit that was significantly smaller than the 2.5-inch screws I was using to make my harvesting rods, I pre-drilled holes on the markings. I didn't drill all the way through both sides of the pipe. After the holes were pre-drilled, I drilled the screws into the harvesting rods. I drilled them in until I could just start to feel the screw puncturing the bottom of the pipe. I didn't drill them all the way through because I didn't want the sharp end protruding, which could possibly hurt the worms or me. I used the 2.5-inch screws everywhere except next to these indentations, where I used 1 1/2-inch screws. With the harvest rods complete, I drilled lots of holes in the top of the bin and around the upper rim of the bin in order to ensure plenty of air for the worms. Then I was ready to fill the bin. I turned all the handles to their horizontal positions, which also turned the screws to their horizontal position. I then placed 2 grocery bags on top of the PVC pipes and added the bedding, food, and worms on top of the grocery bags. The grocery bags will be enough for now to hold the contents of the bin in place. As more and more material is added to the bin, eventually the weight of all the material will compress the castings into clumps, which should prevent most of the material from falling below, even after the grocery bags have decomposed. In the future, when I'm ready to harvest castings, I'll just turn the harvesting rods, which should loosen up the castings and cause them to fall below into the collection area. Before closing, I should point out that I do have one concern about this design. I'm concerned that the screws could potentially harm some worms during harvesting. To minimize this risk, I'll only harvest castings a small amount at a time, and when the bin is completely full. When the bin is full, almost all of the worms will be near the top where the food is, and out of harm's way. I'll also turn the harvesting rod slowly and carefully to give any remaining worms a chance to make an escape. With these precautions in mind, I'm hoping that this design will make harvesting worm castings even easier than with my last worm bin design. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, remember, you can change the world one yard at a time.